The norm that tells you that you're supposed to be in a monogamous, sexual, and romantic relationship. That's the goal in life. That's like the epitome of happiness. And if you don't feel happy from that, if you don't want that in life, you're less human.
I have to pretend to be heterosexual and fit the norm, but I don't want to because I would be betraying my own self. Now I decided that I won't lie to myself.
Definition of asexuality is not, it actually has nothing to do with sex. It has to do with attraction and the lack of sexual attraction.
Asexual is not antisexual.
Can I be homosexual and asexual?
People don't know it's a thing. We really need awareness and acceptance.
One thing that's kind of important to point out is that there's a difference between sexual attraction and aesthetic attraction. I can still look at a person and be like, whoa, their face is really symmetrical and they're really good looking. It's just that it doesn't do anything for me. I don't get off on it. Sexuality and romanticism have often been kind of mixed together, but people within the LGBTQIA community have started to dissect sexuality and romanticism a lot more. Some people might think that we're overcomplicating things, but then again, you kind of allow more people to really dissect themselves and really find themselves, because maybe they like having sex with all genders, but they would prefer to be in a relationship with only one of them. And the definition of that would be pansexual and, let's say, homoromantic. And you would use the same prefixes, so homoromantic, heteroromantic, biromantic, panromantic, aromantic. And if we would separate those definitions, people who are heterosexual could actually maybe experiment a bit more.
Especially living in a heteronormative society, I feel like because you have all this heteronormativity forced on you all the time, if you don't have a sexuality that is clear to you because it's so open, then it's easy to misinterpret something as being what society is telling you it is. So I've had the experience of going along with that shit because I didn't have a word and I didn't know that what I was different and was something else.
I view myself as an asexual homoromantic, meaning I lack sexual attraction, but I can get romantic feelings towards men. As a homoromantic, it's hard. The homonormative behavior is usually sex first, talk later in many cases. Therefore, finding people that respect my sexuality have been hard to come by.
demisexual. You only experience sexual attraction towards people you have a strong emotional connection with, or that you like really like. I'm not sex repulsed when I'm in a very good relationship. That's the situation where the demisexuality comes in.
Sex positive, sex favorable can mean different things, but sex favorable is someone who enjoys sex themselves. And then there's the sex negative, where maybe they don't like sex and don't view it as a good thing, but that's not so common. But then in the middle, well, I hate to say in the middle, it's more like off the chart altogether. I would say sex indifference, where you don't give a damn either way.
My name's Yasmin Bamwa and I'm a model and asexuality activist. I interpret sex positive as like a attitude rather than as an action. So in terms of like my views towards sex, like I think sex is awesome, I just don't do it. So I'm sex positive in a mental sense. Like I think it's super interesting and cool and awesome and I totally get why people do it, but I would rather not do it. People often do try and do the whole, but if you haven't done everything, how would you know? But it's funny because I always get that from like straight guys and I'm like, well, how many guys have you had sex with to call yourself straight? Like, well, I mean, if you haven't had sex with a few men, how do you know you're straight? So really, we shouldn't be calling you straight either. If I can't call myself asexual, and then they're like, oh, okay, touche. I would never say that I'm sex repulsed, but then maybe technically because I don't do it, and I would very much rather not do it. Maybe that is a type of repulsed, but I feel like that's more of like a repulsed by like the very thought of it or like seeing it. But I'm like, no, yeah, hell yeah, totally mention it. I'm cool with that, but I just don't do it. So I don't know, I don't feel like I quite fit into any of the categories of attitudes, in my opinion.
I consider myself asexual and aromantic, and I think I started realizing that when I was 13, 14, or at least at that age I started realizing that, I wasn't attracted to boys or girls, and I would say things like I'm not straight or gay. And then I think around 15 is when I came across the term asexual online and started reading about it and realized that it described me perfectly, so that's when I started to identify using that label. I don't experience any romantic attraction or romantic feelings for anyone. I do have close relationships with people, like friendships. I guess emotional attraction maybe, but I wouldn't say romantic attraction. There's no like that physical feeling for someone in a romantic way, and that need to be affection in a romantic way with someone. So yeah, no, dating has never been a desire of mine.
It took a while for me to realize, wow, people are really preoccupied by, wanting to bang other people. Like, I'm not. A group within the asexual community are AAA, and by that I mean asexual, aromantic, and agender, which, I am.
People actually could say, what is it being a same female as birth, and raise it in a gender-conforming, typical, traditional, heteronormative environment? It doesn't give you a lot of options about sex. I do feel desire, and I do have a libido, but somehow that libido doesn't really get there with another person involved. Asexuality is more than a political standpoint tied with my transfeminism. I do believe in the fluidity of my desire and my wants. My only wish is for people to stop saying that intimate relationships can only happen if sex is involved. That's something that makes me feel not only inadequate, but also it makes me feel mad.
Anyway you do it wrong. I'm giving you my love, no it's not over sex.
I think that the acknowledgement of asexuality, it will be a way to think about what is intimacy, what is to have an intimate relationship, and how desire is actually constructed.
When I am in romantic relationships, I don't actually need sex to have the relationship work. It happened with multiple polyamorous relationships that were working in the same time, in parallel. And the situation was kind of the same. There was attraction, romantically, physically, sensually, but no need for sex. And that was very good for me, because every relationship I had before starting to explore polyamory 3 years ago was strictly sexual, and most of them were cis men, and they were imposing their sexuality on me. And because of my gender fluidity, I wanted to reassure my femininity by being sexual. By being sexual in that way. It's not that I am not sexual, but not in that way. I'm not repulsed by it in no way, but it doesn't form the center of my relationships and my interactions with the world. So that's how I may fall in the demisexual category. And the funny thing is that one of my partners is heterosexual cis male, but of course there's the fact that every kind of that identifications are easily erased. I can easily pass as heterosexual, cis, and sexual in general. And oh well, I am on the kinky spectrum also. But I haven't really acted upon many things, because the whole BDSM and kink communities are a little bit scary for me, because they are so sexually orientated, and I'm more of a sensual person that needs other kinds of communication with people. Well, bondage is interesting. I have some rope skills actually. Yeah, and I find it very erotic to be able to touch one person and make intricate designs of their bodies with rope. But I think that I should know the person and be kind of intimate with them in order to be able to act upon my desires.
In my teenage, it is dark period in my life. I felt solitude. Only me is different. I could not tell my friends, my teachers. Newspaper interviewed me, but he mistake asexual and antisexual. He wrote. So I'm angry. Antisexual. I don't use asexual is not antisexual.
I was always a nonconformist, so I didn't really care about how I was expected to behave. Asexuality was never the weirdest thing about me, so it was never really like a big deal discovering that there was something else that was different. So yeah, I knew that there was an expectation that I would be dating or having sex or having boyfriends or whatever, but why would I do something I don't want to do to please other people?
I'm touch averse, but not really repulsed. But, well, I can feel a romantic attraction, so that's a bit annoying. I would have liked being aromantic as well. Sometimes I have trouble differentiating between romantic attraction and other sorts of attractions, because yeah, it's just, oh my god, this is an interest in this person or character, and I'm intrigued. I know there are lots of bisexual people who watch porn because like it's easier to get release. I like that like first spark, and then as soon as they start having sex, like, okay, I'm not interested anymore. When I meet people as well, I like that first spark, but as soon as people start to touch you, everything just dies.
I feel like an alien because most people like watch porn and have this really secret porn stash hidden somewhere in their hard drive. I'm like, I cannot relate to this at all. Whoa, asexual porn. Yeah, cuddling. Intensive, really caring, cuddling. I would actually even watch them.
If you're literally sleeping just beside each other and giving a hug and looking into each other's eyes, that might be an alternative. Because what you want is an emotional connection. I mean, if you really want one. I don't think romanticism or romantic relationships has been defined in our society. Relationship can have multiple flavors, and I want something deeper, which is close to friendship but not romantic. I have a not perfect, but flawed but workable relationship with the person I was talking about. He's homosexual, I'm asexual. Doesn't really make any difference as long as we are emotionally close and we have our different needs and we can sort it out from different places. It's hard enough to be just asexual and being in a relationship. It's harder to be gender fluid, asexual, and aromantic to be in a relationship. So, I always feel like if I have a conversation, not on a date, but even I have a conversation, I would have to directly explain this is who I am, and I have this kind of boundaries, and other than that, everything is fine. But that's kind of awkward. Nobody talks like that. I had this kind of situation where I looked into my friend's eyes and gave him a hug. So was he satisfied sexually? No, because he's homosexual and I respect it. Was I? Yeah, to some extent, yes.
My relationship goals is to find the Sam to my Frodo, like the kind of friend that'll go with you to Mordor to like destroy the One Ring. Like I think that's pretty hardcore. Like the kind of Ron to my Harry kind of thing. like you've got each other's backs properly for like a whole 6 books. That kind of friendship is my goal in life.
People often ask me on apps like Grindr why I'm there if I'm not looking for sexual encounters. But since there's no real app for asexuals and even less means for someone ace-homo-romantic to find love, you kind of have to use what is available. It's been around 4 years since the last footage of me, and I found a partner that I truly love and respect, but that also falls on the asexual spectrum. In previous relationships, there's been moments when I said yes, even though I wanted to say no, just to please my exes. It always left me feeling uneasy about myself. Why did I put up with something
to combat the misconception that all aces are sex averse, there was a push to say, oh, but some aces have sex with their partner to make them happy, kind of thing. And so even though your ace partner might be sex indifferent, if you talk and work things out, then they might have sex with you. That kind of stuff ties into personal baggage for me, I guess, because I've been in that situation. And yeah, it was not nice. Especially for people who, for example, may be on the asexual spectrum and don't know that it's a sexual orientation, they may go to their doctor seeking to figure out why they don't have a sex drive, why they aren't attracted to someone. And that doctor may misdiagnose their sexual orientation as sexual dysfunction, and instead treating it as a problem that can lead down a very painful, negative path.
Obviously, I knew that there's something different with me, but I didn't know what it was. I thought either it's a medical problem, or this is just a secret that I have to keep for the rest of my life.
In like the trans and non-binary community, there's a lot of discussion of social constructs, how gender is a social construct, and how some aspects of it can be performative. But in terms of sexuality, natural equals how someone is without any outside intervention. So if someone is asexual and there wasn't any outside intervention there, then how can being asexual be unnatural? And also within nature, variation is natural. Asexuality is another variant of sexuality that just is naturally occurring in nature. And that's one of many reasons why more awareness is very important. But also the lack of sex education and the fact that you can just not want to have sex and that's okay, kind of thing. No one actually said that, and I wish they had.
I feel like possibly because I'm asexual, I don't sexualize my body the way other people do. And I don't sexualize clothes the way other people do. It would seem strange for me to try and cater my wardrobe to my sexuality. I think that would be weird for anyone to have to say, oh no, I'm too gay to wear that color, or oh no, I'm too asexual to wear that length of clothes. Like, that's not really how it works. So I think it's interesting because I kind of, just by being myself and just wearing what I want to wear, which is what I've been doing my whole life, it challenges people's ideas about how asexual people are supposed to look and how we're supposed to dress, because I guess people think we shouldn't put any effort into our appearances at all. But then as a woman, people would probably get mad at me for that too, so you can't really win either way. Like when I was like a teenager and I wasn't very confident, I was like, well, maybe like sexuality will kick in when I like myself more. And now as an adult, I'm like, well, I do like myself. I think I look pretty good. So that obviously has nothing to do with it, because I feel like I'm no longer in the position to be like, oh, I hate the way I look, because like I get positive reinforcement quite often. I mean, I know I'm an acquired taste, but I get enough positive reinforcement to be like, okay. And like it hasn't changed anything at all. Like it's not about what you look like. It's like it's its own independent thing. I have a lot of religious family members, so I gotta change my outfits whenever I see family. I have to drop the pentagrams and the, and the inverted crosses and all that kind of stuff, so I don't scare people, because most of my family is either Roman Catholic, Muslim, or like, what's that one that everyone in London is, like Seventh-day Adventist. So I feel like they don't know how to take it, because they think it's a good thing as a woman that you're not interested in sex and you're not having sex. It's like, well, this is great. You're like a good woman. This is awesome. until you say, like, no, asexuality is a sexual orientation that isn't straight. It's not just being a straight, well-behaved woman. It's not being straight. It's part of the LGBT plus spectrum. And then it's like, oh, no, you've made it weird. And then it's like, it changes the approach. So I think people, especially just because of the way I look and the way I dress, people don't know what to make of it. They don't know whether to be mad or not. Like, some people are mad because it's like, oh, well, why are you dressing like that then? Like, why are you teasing us by looking like that and then not doing anything? Or it's just, yeah. So I feel like that intersection is kind of less to do with feeling like I have to kind of police that or like be different from it. More just people not knowing how to interpret it because it's a positive thing in conservative circles, but being LGBT plus or not straight is not a positive thing. So it's like they don't know how to take it. It's not like a stance of like, oh, you're doing it, so I'm not going to do it to prove a point. It just so happens that our society is in a place where, as it's became more liberal, sex has became a bigger, more open deal, and now it's kind of switched in the sense that not doing it is weirder than doing it.
You know, I think there's a lot of people who think of themselves as liberal and progressive that still are not very open-minded about asexuality. I think a lot of them think that asexuality goes against the things that they advocate for, especially with the whole sex positive movement and encouraging women to embrace their sexuality. And they think that asexual people are repressing themselves and they're very like anti-sex and that they're holding women back because of that. It's kind of seen like you're a nun in a way. And like I definitely don't think of myself as a conservative person at all. You know, to me being liberal is about accepting people for who they are and being respectful of people's personal choices and their identities. And if they embrace the idea that women should be true to who they are and not conform to what society wants them to be, then asexuality is something that they should understand.
When you don't have a sexuality, it's difficult to understand like how a sexuality is such a big component because it's like I've never, like, that's never been a component for me. So like I can be like, yeah, like I get it, I totally support it, but at the same time, like it's hard to empathize with it because I actually don't understand that feeling at all. Especially being aromantic as well. Like, there's something about sexuality that baffles me in a sense when I see, like, people will put their lives on the line. People will destroy families. They'll put themselves at risk just to get laid. And I'm like, wow. Like, was it that significant? Was that orgasm that important to you? Couldn't you have just pleased yourself?
I sort of get why people mix up gender and sexuality. Like, if you are a heterosexual cis person, someone who identifies with the gender they were assigned at birth, and maybe you believe that there are only two genders. If you're a woman, you're attracted to men, because that's the opposite gender. Sexual identities, like heterosexuality and homosexuality, are dependent on your own gender. That label changes if you change your perception of your gender. For example, I wouldn't feel comfortable identifying as heteromantic since I'm non-binary, and there is no opposite gender for me or to me that I believe.
You know, I wear makeup, I wear jewelry, I wear perfume, short dresses, and like, you know, I'm someone who does think about my appearance, but I think people don't expect to see that in an asexual person. They think that they wouldn't care what they look like, or that they would dress in a very gender neutral way. So when people hear that I'm an ace person, they have a hard time believing that, even if they believe that asexuality is something that exists, because I don't meet their stereotypical image. And they think that I give off a sexual vibe because of how I appear, how I present myself, how I dress.
The only sexualization of women that society likes to accept is the passive kind, that is for the consumption of someone else. When a woman actually expresses herself and her own will and her own desire and her own needs, then it's met with gasp and surprise and negative accusations. And I think that's fucked up. So for me personally, I am not a woman, I'm non-binary, but I am perceived as a woman, but not just as a woman, as a black woman. And I feel like black women are sexualized on a completely another level, hypersexualized. So the contrast of desexualized, sexualized, hypersexualized. And it's true that all women are sexualized, hypersexualized in some way or another, but I also think that different points of intersectionality for each person, race, class, gender, sexuality, presents with another flavor of hypersexualization.
There is lots of violence. The whole social reproduction of heteronormative scripts, is raising subjects, oppressive subjects, abusive subjects. I consider myself lucky because there isn't any script. Everything is so new. It's a starting point for acting and seeing things in a more political way. We can stop imposing oppressions on a micro level.
I'm trying to change the norm, but it's uphill battle. So I'm not really sure I'll be able to do that, but I'm trying. So I don't know. Maybe it would make sense in the future. Maybe somebody would be happy that I'm doing that now.